On Tuesday, we covered the frankly embarrassingly cozy interview of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, conducted by Manosphere YouTubers the Nelk Boys. Here's a clip to jog your memory.
Why do they say Israel's like starving the people of Gaza?
Well, because we're trying to get the food in, and we let food trucks in, and guess what happens when we let them in? Hamas steals the food, takes the good chunk for itself, then sells at inflated prices. They jack up the prices, and then they sell the food to its population, to its hungry population, if they give them at all, and then use the money that they take from their own people to recruit more killers into their terror machine. That's what happens.
Why are more Palestinians not siding with Israel against Hamas then?
Well, up to now, they've been terrorized, but guess what's happened? Since we're beating Hamas, all of a sudden we see Palestinians rising. You have to see this to believe this, okay? And they say to Hamas, hey, you're not coming into my building. You know, you can't use my school or this hospital as your command post. We're not letting you. And they start fighting them. Now we have actually armed conflict between Palestinians and terrorists. It was unimaginable a year and a half ago. But now there are Palestinians who rise up. And, you know, the more the better, because we can create a different future for Gaza. And we should also do something very simple that President Trump said, and it was brilliant. So that's my idea. That's how he cuts to the chase. He says, you know, at the end of this war, the people of Gaza should have the choice. If they want to leave for other countries, they want a freedom of choice. Why are they locked in? Hell, we're not locking them in. Anybody could leave, but Hamas is locking them in. Suppose they want to leave. They want to go to another country, okay? Why shouldn't they have the freedom of choice to do that?
Now, obviously, our earlier interview with famine expert Alex Duval shows you how this claim that Israel is trying to get aid to Gaza, but it's just not getting to the people, is completely false. And also, when this war is over, Gazans should have freedom of movement to leave if they want, is an insane thing to say. Firstly, Palestinians in Gaza have made it abundantly clear that they don't want to leave. That's the whole point. And Netanyahu is trying to couch his desire to empty Palestine of Palestinians as freedom to move or freedom to, freedom of choice. But also, he's arguing that Hamas has been restricting the movement of Palestinians in Gaza. Long before October 7th, Gaza has been under blockade by Israel. It was frequently referred to as an open-air prison, and that's because Israel was besieging Gaza by land, sea, and air. They control everyone and everything that can enter and exit that strip, down to the number of calories of food, and that's before October 7th. Now, the questioning ranged from the stupid to the downright ridiculous, whether it's him saying, so why don't the Palestinians join the side of the Israelis? What do you talk why don't they join the side of the people that are committing a genocide against them? But then you have them asking Netanyahu, who, by the way, is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes, whether he prefers Burger King or McDonald's. Now, after significant backlash from their own viewers, including losing 100,000 subscribers overnight, they went on Hassan Piker's show to defend their interview.
Would you be neutral with bin Laden in the same way that you're like a neutral podcast?
I think we would do our best to ask him tough questions.
Okay. All right.
I think
what
there's
about
a sense
ISIS?
of understanding too, right?
What about Adolf Hitler?
I think we'd always kind of play the neutral role.
You would play a neutral role interviewing Adolf Hitler. I don't think that's the case. I think you're just saying that right now because you want to.
We're just not the best at grilling guests and pushing back on them, to be honest. Like I said, we're not claiming to be good journalists. We can ask a question, but when it comes to a follow-up question, I'll be honest, we're not the most I've never claimed to be super educated on this.
Hassan, you haven't even watched the podcast.
I haven't. I haven't had time.
They're like, don't get us wrong. We're complete morons. That's the thing that you guys don't seem to get. So they frame it as, look, we're not so good. We're not so educated on it. We're not so good at asking follow-up questions. Well, it turns out that their questions weren't even their questions. Take a look at this.
So we walked in
and there was just like 20 people in suits there.
Yeah.
The setup was already there. Both flags, we couldn't touch anything or move anything.
And they don't give you any restrictions like don't ask this.
I'll be honest, they gave us a paper with questions to ask. But they also said they gave us a script to ask, but we didn't really follow it. Yeah. We tried our very best to ask some questions, but I think
I like the questions you asked to him.
It was tough, but with a guy like that, I just wasn't really educated on this subject, you know?
I just love that they're so stupid that they were like, you've been recruited as part of like a propaganda mission, because, you know, they're saying there that they were literally given a list of questions to ask by Netanyahu's team. So not only was it a softball interview, it wasn't even their softballs. Like they were giving softballs that had been like designed for them by Netanyahu. So like they've been roped into this like propaganda exercise. Maybe they weren't aware of it. I don't know. But I love how like they're so moronic that they're like, they don't even understand that like the number one rule of when you're trying to do propaganda is you don't sit there and say like, so we were given a list of things to ask and this is what we were told to say, and to like not realize that you're kind of like giving the whole game away. But Netanyahu did say at some point in that interview, you know, oh, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to connect with the younger generation. I would argue that the reason he was doing that interview is because those hosts don't have a working brain between them. And they're probably the only people that he could get some of those talking points past. Curtis, are you as annoyed as I am that despite loving this job, it means that you have to find out about people like, I've already forgotten their names. What are they? The Nerks?
Is it Nelk brothers?
Nelk
Bros?
boys. I'm so sorry. The auntie kicked in. I was like, the Nerks, the Neeks? I don't know. Yeah, this is the worst part of the job, right?
Well, Dahlia, I didn't know who the Nelks guys were before yesterday anyway, so don't worry about it. Look, I think this is when we start saying we need to really increase the costs of podcast equipment. Although thinking about that, those guys got far more money than I have. So actually, I'd be without. Having said that, there are far too many podcasts out there which are just utter slop content. It's embarrassing to watch. Look, I'm impartial to some podcasts, by the way, but I think they should always be interesting conversations, be it politics or not politics. But something like that is absolutely horrendous. I mean, before I get into the Nelks, I really, really want to comment on what Netanyahu said about aid, about saying, well, Hamas are taking all the aid and they're stealing it and selling it back to them. My question is, why is there aid in the first place? Right? It's there because of you guys, because you've destroyed all the infrastructure. You've murdered so many people. You've flattened Gaza. There wouldn't be aid without you. They could become a functioning society, but you have done that. Look, this is obviously a massive propaganda piece. And I actually didn't know until you just showed that clip that they were handed questions to them. Now, I think you're almost being a bit too kind here, Dahlia, because I don't think they're just naive. At the end of the day, your average person who wants to conduct an interview and the person who you're supposed to be interviewing, who also is a massive political figure during a genocide, right, offers you a paper with questions. You have to stick to the script. Like anyone would be like, I'm not doing that. Like I'm pretty small time, but if I managed to bag an interview with Keir Starmer and want to grill him, if him and his team turned around and said, okay, here's the script, I'd say do one. I'm not going to lose my integrity for it. So I don't think it's just them being stupid and silly. Very interesting to see that they went on Hassan Piker as well. I mean, he absolutely grilled them. And it's true, though. I mean, he said, look, if Hitler was in front of you, would you ask tame questions? And obviously they were just saying, well, we would be neutral, but they're just trying to save their skin. The clip where the guy said, look, I don't really know about these politics or anything about the conflicts, then why are you interviewing him, right? Just don't do it. I mean, if you're the type of podcast entertainment thing where you just talk about slop content, then just stick to that. But if you're no good at follow-up questions and you're no good at grilling people, then don't interview people. But it's just a grift. It's a clear grift. And of course, Netanyahu does not care about trying to reach the younger generation. It's another propaganda piece, which is funny because the mainstream media has largely been covering for Israel up until recently. Obviously, the first segment of this show, we talked about how the media is starting to change a little bit. Doesn't matter for Israel and Netanyahu. They could just go on a bunch of idiots' podcasts and start pushing out pro-Israel propaganda. It was truly pathetic, but to hear that they lost 100,000 subscribers overnight, that is bliss. I'm here for it.
I love the idea that like when they got that list of questions, they were like, I love it. Like when I kind of try to reconstruct in my brain, I like imagine that like they come to this interview, they're kind of nervous because like they don't really know what's going on. They don't really know what they're doing. And then they get this like list of questions like, oh my God, thank you guys. Like, thank you guys for helping us out by like doing all the research and writing all the questions for us. Like you've done us such a solid. But yeah, I mean, this is what happens when, because these guys apparently, they have a prank YouTube show. So like a YouTube show dedicated to pranking people, which actually, to be fair, this does kind of fit in the genre of, in a weird way. But I guess it's like, you know, on the internet, all attention can be monetized. When it comes to monetizing attention, good and bad is not the point. It's about just numbers. And to be fair, I mean, it actually did lose them quite a lot of numbers, but it also gave them notoriety that they might not have had before. I mean, I've heard of them, which I'm sure I've now heard of them, which I hadn't heard of them before. And I'm sure that, you know, they'll consider that a very considerable victory and worth all of the backlash from their own viewers.